the Managed Diversity and Inclusion Student Leadership Virtual Panel Discussion presented by the J. Mac Robinson College of Business Career Advancement Center. I'm Aaliyah Martin, and I serve as one of the undergraduate career counselors here in the Career Advancement Center at Robinson College of Business. Again, I want to take a moment to welcome all of our students, employers, panelists, and a special welcome to our sponsors, NCR and Koch Industries. Just to give you some background information, prior to the pandemic, traditionally we host this event as a diversity breakfast prior to our spring career expo. The event was always well attended. We had a lot of employers, a lot of students who actually got a chance to sit down with employers, network, learn about their D&I opportunities at their companies, and a lot of students were able to secure internships or job opportunities from that event. So we know that it's very important, the issues that are surrounding diversity and inclusion in the workforce. So instead of rescheduling or canceling the event, we decided to offer the program in a virtual space. So we appreciate each of you taking time out today to be with us. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome or introduce our senior career counselor and the chair for this particular event, Miss Lakeisha Hughes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lakeisha Hughes. I'm the Senior Career Counselor here at the Robinson College of Business. Me and Aaliyah are wonderful teammates to help put together this wonderful program for everyone. We are sad that we can't be together, but like Aaliyah said, we do not want to end what we have going on. It's such an important time for us to reach out to everyone and really look at what's going on in the world and how it's affecting our students during this time. I would like to introduce our wonderful panelist of students. But before I do that, let's go through this agenda so we can talk about what we're doing today. Aaliyah went through this wonderful welcome. I just talked about this wonderful event. We'll introduce our wonderful panelists, have a wonderful panel discussion and some polls. As well as we'll have a networking period where students, you'll be able to go into breakout rooms with our special sponsor guests today and have one-on-one conversations with them in the breakout room as well. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to put all questions within the chat. As well as if you are a BCom student, please make sure you do your wonderful snapshot for your credit for attending this wonderful event today. All right, let's go.
Keisha, you can go ahead and introduce the panelists. I'm working on the poll right now.
No problem. All right, wonderful. Now let's look at our wonderful panelists. I would like to introduce Matthew Clark. He's a senior accounting major graduating this spring. Matthew, you here? Say hello.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Clark. Yes, as Lakeisha was saying, I'm a senior accounting major graduating this spring. And will be attending Robinson College of Business for my Flex MPA after graduation.
Awesome. I have Ms. Kate Powers, MBA Operations Management, May 2021 as well. Kate.
Hi everyone, welcome Matthew. We won't overlap, but how exciting. My name is Kate Powers. I'm an MBA student at Robinson with a concentration in Operations Management. Graduate in 3 months. And I just started a co-op at Kimberly-Clark Corporation. I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. And Olivia Rue, our senior computer information systems major, graduating in spring 2021.
Yes, I am graduating in spring 2021, so mind the typo, please. But hi, welcome. I'm happy to see everyone. I'm happy to speak with everyone. And just apologies in advance if my dog does make an appearance. I am sitting down and this is her spot where I like to pet her. So if you see her, just please mind her.
Wonderful. Cecilia Zhang, our junior marketing major, graduating in spring 2022.
Hello, everyone. This is Cecilia. I'm a marketing major. I was the resume book designer for last diversity breakfast, and it's nice to see everybody here.
Wonderful. Mr. John Lee, our senior managerial science with a minor in computer information systems, graduating as well in 2021. Lots of seniors. Not leaving us.
A lot of seniors indeed. Hi, everyone. My name is John Lee. I'm a senior majoring in managerial sciences. I'm minoring in computer information systems, and I'm going on the HR track for my degree.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Miss Sheridan Green. She is also a junior. I don't have a lot of juniors, but I'm excited to have a junior managerial science major and minoring in international business, graduating in May 2022.
Hello, welcome everyone. As Lakeisha said, I am a junior manager of science major, international and business minor. My expected graduation date is May 2022. And currently I do have an internship with Amazon that I'm set to start in the summer of 2021. And my plans for after graduation is to obtain my master's in international business.
Wonderful. All right, guys, we are going to get started. Thank you guys for all participating today again and taking out of your busy schedule. We wanted to let you see who the wonderful D&I community is. She's our behind the scenes guru, Marielle Thomas. You might not see her, but you'll always know she's behind the scenes working and making sure we're functioning wonderfully. Again, we're gonna get started. Again, here's a few companies to let you know no one gets you closer to business than Robinson, as well as take a great screenshot of how you can always connect with us as well as we begin the process of this wonderful panel. Aaliyah.
All right, you can go ahead and let Matthew start with the panel discussion.
All right. Matthew, you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
So thank you so much, Aaliyah and Lakeisha, for putting on this event and being able to give all the students this opportunity even throughout the pandemic. So for our wonderful panelists this morning or this afternoon, my first question to you is, during the pandemic, how has your internship or your job search changed, and what challenges have you overcome during this internship and throughout that job search? I guess we can start with Sheridan.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. So the thing is that was so different for me for doing like a job search in the pandemic, looking for an internship. It was just a different setting. It was a different change because we were doing everything virtually, and I'm used to doing things in person. I feel like in-person interviews are just more personable. You get to feel the actual interviewer, but I feel like with doing things virtual, it was just a time for adjustment as well. But I feel like it wasn't really a bad experience when it came to looking for, a job. But some of the challenges I did have to overcome was just learning how to adjust to the new norm essentially. And I didn't really have any other challenges besides that. It was just a little different. I just felt like it wasn't as personable as doing like an interview in person. So that was just one of the only challenges that I had, was just learning how to adjust to the new system or the new norm.
Absolutely. Kate, do you have any thoughts as well?
I do. This is a great question. In the past, I've always relied on the career fair offered by the university to meet with employers. And I think that especially last year, some of the employers were hesitant to have a presence, or they didn't know what their plans were going to be. So I wouldn't say their recruiting was put on hold, but at least their university recruiting was slowed down a little bit. So I had to seek out some other options for connecting with employers and getting my name out there. So I went to several MBA conferences and met people that way, and then just some targeted LinkedIn searching that was really helpful too.
Absolutely. John?
Hey, for me, it wasn't as much of a change. I would have to agree with Sherry on this, my bad. For me, what was really different was the interviewing method. I'm really used to applying to these different positions online, through Handshake or LinkedIn or through a direct job page. So, that part wasn't very different to me. But what was different was the fact that we're switching almost completely over to these virtual interviews. And for me, I have a better time expressing myself in person. I tend to use a lot of body language. And so, I feel like that kind of got lost in the process. So it was a little bit more difficult to express myself during those interviews and show, my personality and everything that I offered. But other than that, I didn't really have much issues.
It's great to hear. And Celia?
Hi, everyone. So it was different for me at first because everything had to be done online instead of the in-person interview or meeting people at career fair. You have to go through LinkedIn to meet recruiters. I purposely changed I make sure I type down all my experience really well throughout on my LinkedIn so people can actually see my work and what I can do. And I set a setting to open to work so the recruiter can see that I'm looking for internships so they can reach out. I'm constantly making new connections online. The difference for me is since I'm a marketing major, I'm always that bubbly person talking at career fair, meeting people. Now it's more like I had to find my ways to show them who I am. So I'm a very visual person. So I made like portfolios. So I guess a good thing about doing a Zoom interview, I can share my screen. So that's a challenge I overcome. I'm still able to show who I am through Zoom calls.
And lastly, Obi.
So fortunately for me, I remained at the same internship I've been working in since over a year now. So I didn't really need to do an internship or a job search. But one thing that did present a challenge to me was when the pandemic first started, and I'm sure along with everyone else, having to adjust to the new norm. And above that, having to adjust to not knowing what to expect next, and especially with everything having to be virtual just out of nowhere, having to adjust to that. So I would say that was really my big challenge, was just having to plan for something that you can't really plan for, I guess.
Absolutely, all amazing answers. And if I were to add to that as well, something interesting that I thought was mentioned was that many people are having a difficult time presenting themselves, whether they're full of bubbly personality, what they can actually offer at an interpersonal level. Something that we all can understand as students, as well as that we're all in our rooms, including the employers here today, some of them at home, et cetera. Even if they're in their workspace, you're still, there's a level of intimacy that the virtual space is bringing. And I think that it's still an opportunity for you to build that relationship as well. So our next topic, I guess everyone kind of touched on this as well. How has networking with employers changed for you during the pandemic? I guess we can start with John this time.
So much like Kay, I mostly relied on in-person events that will mostly be career fairs or the small networking opportunity that's presented by Georgia State. That changed a lot for me because I prefer being in person because once again, that's how I mainly express myself through these, even the slightest body movements. And so, for me, that was very difficult to transition to doing it fully online, messaging people through LinkedIn, asking to connect, meet people through handshake. It's a lot of changes, but it was very manageable, I think.
Absolutely. Kate, do you have any?
I mentioned earlier having to be really targeted with reaching out to people on LinkedIn. And I think that, in the past, we had what I call water cooler moments, where maybe you would just run into someone in the hallway or at an event, or you would say, hey, we're wearing the same color shirt, or you have maybe I wouldn't see your dog, but you might identify something in common that would spark a conversation. And you don't have that through the virtual platform. So what I have noticed is when I reach out to people individually, you have to be really specific about who you're talking to, who you're asking to meet with, why, you don't want to waste their time. But people are all stuck at home and they want to talk to other people. They want to have that moment of connection. So it's really heartening to me to see how many people have been open to connecting, even when you don't know them already, just to make those new relationships. So that's been actually a plus to this.
Absolutely. Building those relationships in this space is so much more accessible now that everyone is, again, stuck at home. Sheridan, do you have any thoughts?
Hello, thank you. So I completely agree. It's a little bit different because how I mentioned on the last question, it's just not as personal. So just relying heavily on LinkedIn and Handshake and just making sure that it's up to date just to try to connect with the employers. I feel like that was slightly hard, but I feel like it's a new way of doing things. I feel like with everything that I've done to just really connect with employers on LinkedIn, talking about current events and just not gonna say kind of going like through their profiles and everything, just to try to get like a connection with them. But that's just a different way to do things, and it was a little different. I could say that.
Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts as well, Obi?
Yes. So before the pandemic, I was exclusively networking face to face, and not having to have that channel was challenging at first. So I did have to lean on LinkedIn. I did have to lean on these different websites, social media websites, even Instagram, seeing someone that is pursuing something that I'm interested in and understanding that I may not get the opportunity to have lunch with you, but I still want the opportunity to actually network and converse with you. So just understanding and learning how to actually network virtually and understanding that everyone, although we are at home, we also have limited time. So understanding how to balance that limited time that you have, as well as understanding that this is something that is new and that is something that we all are all adjusting to it. And sometimes we just need something to just get us by, really. So having someone to talk to, having all the new interactions, and eventually making it normal has been really helpful.
Absolutely. Cecilia, did you also have any thoughts?
Okay, I kind of touched on how I connect with employers earlier. So just really build your personal brand online. Make sure your profile looks, spend a time, good amount. I spend a amount of time to build my personal brand. So because everything's online now, so everybody just look through a link. You can create link tree, lead to different site of yours, especially with me interested in digital marketing. It's not too bad for me to have to just transition online platform to connect with people, because now it is more, they look at my page, they're like, oh, because everything's online now. They got used to looking online stuff. So they click on my page, they see all the past work I've done. So recently, how I connect with it actually happened during a class. I was in a class discussion. We had a presentation and I made a really cool poster. And one of the professor really liked the poster and she connected me with another employer. So now I'm interning with her. So that's just really take time, build your personal brand is what I would say for an online setting.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. So now that you've Sorry, I'm getting a message here. Mariel, will we be able to launch the pool before we get into the D&I questions?
Leah, did you want to start a poll before you get to the
Yeah, I
question?
think Marielle has access to launch it because we're going to segue into some more D&I questions. Marielle, do I need to make you a host again, or are you already host?
I just launched it, so hopefully you should be able to see.
Can
I
you
see,
guys see the poll?
I see the poll.
Y'all see the poll?
Awesome.
All right, guys, take the poll for us.
Can you see the question, Matthew? Can you say it so everybody can hear it? I think you muted yourself again.
It actually just clicked off my screen. I'm so sorry. You able to?
It disappeared.
Are you able to see it? It didn't click on my screen.
So I just
Can you
submitted,
see it, Obi?
I just
Go
submitted
ahead, Obi.
the poll, but I do
You
remember
see
the
it.
questions, not word for word, but the message of the question. So the first question was, do you feel comfortable discussing your cultural backgrounds, your ethnic backgrounds, and things of that nature with your coworkers? And I believe the second question was, do you feel because of your background, because of the color of your skin, or because of your values, that you feel like you have to work harder in order to achieve equality with other people?
Awesome. Mario, is there a way that you can show the results?
I don't know, but I can kind of read what the results are, if that's helpful.
Go ahead, that's helpful.
Okay. So for the first question, I am comfortable discussing my background and cultural experience with my coworkers, leaders, and managers. Right now, we have 80% that agree with that, 23% that somewhat agree, and so far 0% disagrees. For the second question, I have to work harder than others to be valued equally because of my race, color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender expression, or gender identity. You have 31% that agree with that, 40% that somewhat agree with that, and then you have 29%, now 28% that disagree.
Oh. Wow, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think Matthew has some questions specifically surrounding D&I coming up next, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And now that we've built that relationship with these employers, done the job search, now we're asking them things that we want to look for in them to reciprocate, right? So what are you looking for in a company when it comes to diversity and inclusion? We can go ahead and start with Obi, just to start off.
Yeah, so the most important thing that I look for is I want to be with a company that naturally wants diversion and inclusion, or diversity and inclusion, I'm sorry. So I know because of the Black Lives Matter campaigns and the civil unrest that companies have felt the pressure to release a statement or release some showing of solidarity with different ethnic groups, especially African Americans. But I want to be with a company that naturally, even before the civil unrest, even before the Black Lives Matter campaign, that they really preached and wanted to exhibit diversity and inclusion. So, prime example, my internship, I currently work for Income Payments, which is a fintech company in downtown Atlanta. And my favorite thing about my internship is how diverse it is. And specifically with my team, I've never seen this before. From me, the intern, all the way up to the vice president, is all of us are all minorities, either African American, either Middle Eastern, or everything else. That has tremendously shaped my internship experience. Not because of being able to see someone that looked like me and saying that if the vice president is able to do this and he looks like this, knowing that I can do this, but also understanding that they have experiences that I can learn from, especially because of their ethnic backgrounds and them being a minority. And that has done many, many blessings just to help me thrive and eventually succeed and really exceed expectations in my internship. So if I want to be with a company, I have to make sure that they naturally want to have people that are one best for the job, but also that have different diversity, that have different backgrounds, different ethics, different everything, because that does help with the work experience and that does help to create a wonderful work experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Obi. And there's definitely a lot there to pick out, everyone, but um, naturally being able to come from a diverse space in your internship, that definitely adds to the experience. Sheridan, would you be able to speak on that?
So yes, I completely agree with Obi. So just wanting diversity before the whole Black Lives Matters movement started, I feel like a lot of companies decided to say something after the fact when that's something that already should have been taking place years ago. But something besides that, something I also look for in a company is female representation in higher positions. I noticed like in a lot of the companies that I interviewed for, I was mostly being interviewed by men and not females. And when looking at companies, just like I want to be interviewed by someone, who looks like me essentially. And just having that female representation, especially from females of color, that's just something I look for in a company.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Female representation is completely important. It doesn't just come down to one ethnic group or marginalized group as well. It does take into account all spaces of inclusion. John, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So one of the things that I look for in a company, in addition to what Sherry and Obi said, was their effort in trying to bring these initiatives of diversity and inclusion into the workplace. And my most vivid experience of that is at the Atlanta Pride Parade, which, as many of you know, celebrates people that fall under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. And I see all these companies, come out and join us. It's very empowering to me because then it makes me feel like, if I were to work there, I'd be valued and I'd be seen. And so, things like those, in addition to things like affinity groups, those are very important to me whenever I look into a company, because if I want to work somewhere where I feel valued and where I feel seen, I mean, that's where to go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Cecilia?
I would say I agree with Sheridan's. I look at the leadership. I look at who's the executives in the company, see if they're diverse. Look at women in leadership, because that just shows that they're the inclusion part, diversity, inclusion, and equity part of a company. And I look into a company's value either on their website or talking to somebody from the company, see what their core values are, and if it aligns with mine, and that would be something I really care for in a company.
Thank you. Lastly, Kate?
Echoing what Sheridan and Cecilia have both said, I definitely look at the leadership. I'm at a stage in my career where I'm looking for growth opportunities, and I want to make sure that those will be available to me wherever I go and are also available to other people who may or may not look like me or have the same background. But last week I met with a recruiter from a company, and then I looked up their board and it was a whole page full of white men. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is the right place for me. Will I be welcome here? Are there other people who will be welcome here? What kind of environment does this company create? Are there leadership opportunities available to people who don't look like that? And it was quite off-putting, to be honest. So that's something that I look for very quickly, just to kind of gauge how the company portrays itself and how it acts in real life.
Absolutely, Kate. There's just so much to consider when you're going into a company, what you want from them, and looking in the long term. Is this a place where you feel that you can grow, depending on your gender or race or group that you belong to? So considering the social and political climate and the fact that the country is more divided than ever, for those companies that aren't taking an interest in diversity and inclusion, what are your thoughts on that? And we can start with John this time.
Well, I will say that I think that companies who don't make an effort to address those issues are the ones that I'm not exactly targeting. As someone who is, openly gay and doesn't receive support from his own family, it's really important for me to work somewhere that, creates a workplace where these differences can be maybe not necessarily celebrated, but supported. A great example of that was when I worked for a gaming company this past fall, called Hyra Studios. Some of you might know them, some of you might not. And I actually came out to my supervisor right after I came out to my parents. And, it was scary. It was terrifying, to be frank. But, she introduced me to these affinity groups for all these employees that are underrepresented. And, it wasn't just for employees that were under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, but also people from, I guess, underrepresented minorities as well. So that can be like racial or cultural or what have you. And, it made me feel like, I was actually part of the organization, it made me feel, valued and seen, as I said earlier. So I usually look for, those type of things in a company. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Obi.
Yes, so one thing I would like to say first is I want to differentiate or identify what we mean by a lack of interest, because I know normally when we hear a lack of interest, we think of a public interest. But what about the companies that are actually showing interest, maybe not publicly, but privately, meaning they hire diverse people, they fundraise or put a lot of money into these different programs to ensure that there is some action. So I would want to first make that distinction. So how I feel about companies that do not show that show a lack of interest or even that show fake interest, because it is one thing to say we are with you, we support you, Black Lives Matter, but it's another thing to actually implement what you're saying. It's a common saying, actions speak louder than words. And looking at the different companies, it's obvious that they say one thing, but if you actually do some research and you see who they have in their company, you realize they're only saying this just because they want to protect their assets, protect their net income, protect everything. So the companies that do show a lack of interest, I know me personally, I refuse to work for any of those companies because I am a minority. I understand that I need to be in an environment that promotes and that actually encourages me to grow despite my appearance, despite how I look, despite what I think. So every company that does show that lack of interest is a hard no. And I personally think that if they keep that message up, that eventually the light will come and they will see that this was not the best decision to say one thing but not actually reciprocate what you're doing in your actions.
Absolutely. Kate.
I agree 100% with what Obi just said. Very nicely stated.
Thank you. Thank you. Jared, do you have any thoughts?
Hi, so I completely agree with Obi. I feel like a company who protects their own image than addressing the actual issues, I feel like you're not targeting anyone who looks like me. I have no interest in working for the company because I feel like you wouldn't value me as an employee, or you will only value me kind of like from the exterior, but you wouldn't really value me like seriously. Like it's kind of like that, caring about that issue, but you really don't.
Absolutely. And Cecilia?
It's interesting you asked that question because I did I did some research on the topic about 2 months ago for a class, and it was about this clothing brand. They were dealing with Black Lives Matter movement. They got in the scandal of not caring about, all their models are Black, but all their workers are not diverse in the company. And when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, she did not address any issues because they do use Black, Asian, and minority models in the company. But so after she got in a scandal, the owner of the company decided to share a public apology, and but it was nobody believed her because it was not genuine. She keep taking cultural stuff into her clothing brand. She basically take credit from other race and other culture and incorporate into her clothing brand, but she never give credits. So a company like that, I feel like if I was an employee for her, she would take my idea and take all the credit of whatever creativity I provide, and I will never get credit for it because people look into the company like, oh, this is her brand, but instead of the employees came up with the idea. So for a company that are not genuine, they do not care about what's going on with actual people like us, I would not want to work for them.
Absolutely. So based on everything our panels are saying, it's extremely important that companies are taking these initiatives and kind of putting the money where their mouth is, right? The action that we need in this space is dire, and being able to have the inclusion of all marginalized groups is really important. So just going off of that, what are the long-term consequences of showing a lack of this interest? What will be the consequences of not investing in diversity and inclusion now? And we can start off with you, Kate.
I think they're huge. Someone mentioned in the chat earlier that that's how you miss out on talent, and I agree with that very much. But I also think that's how you miss out on market share. That's how you're kind of driving yourself into the ground. We are a diverse country. We have people from all kinds of backgrounds who look differently, who act differently, who think differently. And if those people aren't represented, maybe they won't buy your products. Maybe they won't want to work for you. Maybe they'll say bad things about you to your friends. It doesn't help. I think it doesn't help any company reach success unless they're taking into account the diversity of our country and really reflecting that both in their workforce and in their output.
Absolutely, Kate. Thank you so much. Sheridan, do you have any thoughts?
So I feel like the long-term consequences of companies like ignoring diversity and inclusion, I feel like the companies will eventually remain stagnant and not grow because you're not getting those new innovative ideas from different perspectives of different groups of people. And I completely agree with what Kate said. Like, you need diversity, companies need inclusion. And that's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Ovi?
So yes, me and Sheridan actually do share the same sentiment. I believe that if you do ignore diversity and inclusion, then you will lack innovation. And when we mean diversity and inclusion, we're just not limiting it to skin color. We're opening it up to people that have different points of views, people that have different backgrounds. Maybe you have an accounting background, and then you have someone with an IT background, and things of that nature. If you have people that all look and or think the same, everything is going to be stagnant, and then you're going to reach a wall where you're not going to know how to overcome it because all your life you've been thinking about this one way of thinking. So with diversity, that actually does help and improve and actually encourage innovation.
Absolutely. The perspectives definitely matter in this situation. And Cecilia, would you be able to speak as well?
I totally agree with both of them. I do think that the long-term consequence will be a lack of engagement because employees feel like they cannot share their ideas without fear or without being heard. They feel like they couldn't be heard if they couldn't find their place at a job, and they'll create lack of job satisfaction. So a long-term will be leaving the job, or they will never show who they are, so you'll never get a perspective.
And lastly, John?
I think if we were to ignore D&I in the workplace and school environment, I think the biggest thing is that we lose trust from people that we represent and the communities that we're in. I mean, not only is it going to pretty much not make employees motivated to work and improve any organization that you're part of, but we'll be contributing to normalizing an environment where we act as though all these social issues and movements and political acts don't affect our people. Ultimately, it'd just be taking a step back from what people from underrepresented communities have been working for decades or even centuries. Equality, equity, and justice. So, that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you all so much. And now that companies are starting to show an interest, what are some ways that you have learned through your experiences on the GSU campus, whether in the already very diverse Robinson College of Business student population or your student organizations? What are some things that you've learned or experienced that have helped you to develop this standpoint? We can start with Obi.
Yeah, so just a background from me, I went to St. Pius X, which is a predominantly white high school. When I was there, it was actually 80% white and 20% other. So coming from a very not diverse high school to a very diverse college as GSU, the one practice that I experienced that actually meant a lot to me was the fact that skin color had nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with how people think of you, what has nothing to do with what people expect out of you. They look at who you are and they look at what you actually have produced instead of just looking solely on what color your skin is. So understanding that me being Black doesn't have anything to do or doesn't really limit me from doing what I want to do because everyone here is diverse. And the first thing people are going to look at is my skin color. That has been a great practice that I've definitely appreciated being here at Georgia State.
Absolutely. And also any successful student initiatives or anything that you've taken part in? Sheridan, do you have any thoughts?
So it's crazy. I have a very similar background to Obi. I went to a private high school, which was majority white. I went to Our Lady of Mercy, which was a Catholic high school. And so it wasn't as diverse as Georgia State is. And so coming to Georgia State University was a little bit of a culture shock in a way, because just seeing like so many different people, not just from like different races, but like different religions, just different economic backgrounds. It was really an eye opener, and just like seeing what people valued instead of just judging them based on their income and their skin tone, and just like making those connections with people and just seeing what people had to offer. I know with a lot of student organizations that I was a part of, especially my business fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi, it helped me to realize that and to see that. And that's what I had to add on that. So I was really surprised that Obi and I have very similar backgrounds. That's crazy.
Thank you so much. Cecilia?
Hi, I my experience at Georgia State will be, sorry, let me turn this down. Will be from Career Advancement Center. So I'm originally from China, and moving to this country without speaking English was really hard. I have to be extra hard, study extra hard to take SAT, and actually going to college as a first generation college student was very big for my family. So when I moved here, I became RA first. Now I'm a senior resident assistant. So the opportunity here at Georgia State, they provide me opportunity, and I guess I'm the first Asian senior resident assistant, and I met Lakeisha last year, and she gave me opportunity to design the resume book. I never thought my work would be presented to so many employers, and so just the opportunity they provide, and I'm just grateful. So that's my experience here.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Kate?
We talk a lot about diversity at Georgia State and Robinson in particular, in terms of the student body, but I'd also like to mention the diversity that's present among the faculty and staff, which is something I really appreciate. So in my program, I've had professors from different countries, different parts of our country. I've had men, I've had women, I've had younger people and older people, and it's the same with the staff. And I really enjoy that because it gives you the opportunity before you're done with school to work with people from different backgrounds in a slightly different capacity than with your peers. And I think it does a good job of preparing you for the workplace, because once you leave school, the workplace is very different. You're dealing with people from different generations, from different backgrounds from you. And it's a really good skill set to have in your toolbox.
Thank you so much, Kate. Lastly, John?
Well, throughout my time at GSU, there are a lot more initiatives for diversity inclusion than we thought. I worked as an orientation leader for about 2 years, and throughout that time, I was required to learn a lot about Georgia State. And it's pretty amazing how the school tries to really help students that come from underrepresented communities, and maybe students that aren't as financially secure as others. But I think that with my personal experience, I was really amazed at the fact that there's departments like the Multicultural Center and the Black Student Achievement Office. I mean, they have a mentorship program for students who are, either Black, underrepresented, LGBTQ+. And then, amazingly, and something that I've experienced and gone through twice myself, was that these offices actually hold a diversity inclusion training for student organizations as well, which is really important because we learn things about intersectionality that isn't really introduced to us until later. So learning about all these things early is a major help when it comes to student development.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And within this space that Georgia State has created specifically for multiculturalism, et cetera, and within your internships and or jobs, have you all ever experienced any rejection in terms of creating those diversity inclusion initiatives? Um, I suppose we can start off with Cecilia this time.
I'm sorry, Matthew, could you repeat the question again?
Sure. Have you ever experienced any resistance to implementing any student initiatives or diversity inclusion initiatives specifically?
Um, I would say my experience at Georgia State, I did not have resistance because they're very big on diversity, inclusion, equity. So my experience here working as a student assistant at Georgia State, housing assistant as university housing, I personally don't have experience on that. So I might have to pass this question to the next person.
Sure. And please speak up if you have had that experience. I don't want to have to. I
So
know
I'll,
this thing again go from your job, internship, etc.
okay, I'll go. So at Georgia State, I've actually been blessed to not encounter any of those issues. But I would say out of Georgia State, well, first, let me identify when I mean diversity and inclusion, I'm talking more than skin color. I'm talking more of how you think, the different ideas that you can bring to the table and things of that nature. So there have been instances where you are in a group with someone and you have one person that believes that everything they say is right and everything else is wrong. And having to work with that individual and having to figure out how to encourage them to be more open to other ideas and not even to accept it, but at least understand where those ideas are coming from and understand the root of those ideas. That have I have definitely been a part of many instances like that. And I would say the best way to overcome that is to remain patient and to also be understanding that not everyone is going to think like you. Not everyone is open to diversity and inclusion, and just being patient and understanding that can take you a long way and can actually help you overcome any of those challenges.
Thank you so much, Obi. Sheridan, John, did you all have any thoughts, or if not, we can move on to
I really didn't have any opinion on that because agreeing with Cecilia, at my time at Georgia State University, I've had numerous different opportunities. I feel like there was no resistance towards implementing diversity and inclusion. And I can't speak for any internship opportunities that I've had. So I've never came across that. So I really didn't have an opinion on that.
Sure, thank you so much.
So for me, I haven't experienced any, um, I guess resistance to any opportunities at Georgia State. You know, the campus is very, very open. It's very diverse, and so I personally haven't experienced any difficulties with that. However, at my last internship, we did have an interesting development. So this happened about 3 months after, you know, Black Lives Matters movement really took off. And the past internship I was at, they actually started requiring employees to take a diversity and inclusion training. Most employees did it, but there were a select few that chose not to. You know, they really resisted it because they felt that the company was doing it for a publicity stunt, but that wasn't the case. You know, we have a lot of employees where that is a pressing concern of theirs because you know, maybe they're experiencing discrimination, they might know someone who is, or you know, what have you. It's an important issue for all, really. In the end, you know, we end up taking out the employee handbook. We considered, you know, giving them warnings or points, but then in the end, our HR business partners actually had talked with them for a while and their manager to explain the importance of diversity inclusion, you know, not only to, you know, the company as a whole, but to people that they work with as well. You know, it's really important in the workplace to make sure that your coworkers are comfortable working there, knowing that they're supported and their differences are celebrated.
Thank you so much, John. And to transition, to a different topic, what are some best practices or best advice that you have for students preparing to go to their first career fair or recruiting this season online? We can start with Kate.
I was part of the Panthers on Wall Street program last year, which is a really, really cool program for students interested in careers in finance or investments. And that program helped me understand the importance of doing your preparation before you have any sort of contact with anyone else. So there's a self element. So thinking about who you are, what's practicing your elevator pitch, what it is specifically you're looking for, talking about the experiences that you've had and feeling comfortable, but also doing your research on the employers. So not walking in blind, but thinking, here's my target list of the people I want to talk to. These are some of the positions I might be interested in. Here's some background about these companies. And it's time consuming, but it's really helpful because that way, you don't want to meet with a recruiter and say, oh, well, what do you guys do? Because that's how they hate you. Like they're wasting their time. You need to know what's going on and understand what are companies that might have opportunities for you and present yourself as a professional. So that's my advice.
Sorry, thank you so much, Sheridan.
So I think that's very interesting how Kate mentioned she was on Panthers on Wall Street. I was on Panthers in the district. So with doing the mock trial, I remember that very specifically. I was very nervous at that event. So the one advice I can give to students for future, career fairs and just for like their future endeavors, I would say do your research on the company, do your research on the employers. I feel like nobody looked on LinkedIn, like find out little stuff that they've done just to show that you did your research, that you care. And I remember for one of the mock trials, one of the employers, he did paintballing. I remember I saw that and we talked about paintballing for an hour and it just made a good impression on him. So just doing that and just being relaxed when speaking to people as well. And that's the advice that I would give.
All right, thank you so much. John?
So I have some pretty practical advice. So my suggestion for career fairs is that when you can, try to volunteer to assist them. Assist the staff, assist in the career fairs, because you not only get to help them, but you also get to help the employers. You get first access to them. Essentially, you're able to make an impression on them, and you get to see how everything works in these sorts of operations. It's actually quite fascinating. You really have to do it one day. And then the networking possibilities, they're great if you attend, but if you volunteer, they're practically endless because you get to know your career center staff and then also potential employers. And then in a more general scope of things, I would say whenever you go into an interview, career fair, or anything, try to leave your fears at the doors. Nobody will be perfect, including the one student in your class who has a full-time job, or maybe even the recruiter you talk to, right? The point is to put your best foot forward and let them see everything that you offer, your experience, your personality, and your interests.
Thank you so much, John. Obi?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it is important to be intentional. And what I mean by intentional is understand what goal you have in mind and understand who or what can help you to achieve your goal. So if that is actually doing your research, if that is reaching out to people, that is very important just so you have some direction that you know you can follow. And in more of a practical sense, I would say understand that at the end of the day, you're still talking to people. You don't have to be scared and say, "Ooh, I'm talking to Google, so I need to make sure that I act perfect," and things of that nature. You have to understand that although they may work at Google or at these other big companies, there's still people at the end of the day that have people traits. And as long as you talk to them as a person and you talk to them in more of a conversation. So it's more as I just want to get to know more about this opportunity, or I just want to know more about who you are as a person, or even how the company is. things of that nature that can actually help alleviate any of the stress and anxiety that you may have entering the fair, or just any job opportunity that you may come across.
Thank you so much, Obi. Lastly, Cecilia.
They pretty much summed everything up. I agree with everybody. So definitely do research on the company, write down some questions, be intentional, be confident, and the most important part, be yourself. So that's why I was nodding a lot when Obi was speaking, because I completely agree. I just think you should show who you are. At the end of the day, that's who they want to know, what you can offer, who you really are, what work you do, what can you bring to my company. So just really present yourself. Don't be nervous. If it's your first career fair, just take a deep breath and put a smile on your face and show them who you are so they can really see you and remember you. Just be, for them to remember you, so maybe they will have opportunity to remember you, to refer to somebody else. It's how you make connections. So
Absolutely. Building that relationship is so important, and your first impressions can be made at the firms going on from this week all the way to the end of this month, I believe. So I wanted to thank all of our student panelists. Congratulations, guys, on all your opportunities, and I wish you success in the future. Now I just want to hand it off to Aaliyah Martin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you to all our panelists. Let's give everyone a virtual round of applause for an awesome diversity and inclusion discussion panel. We thank each of you guys for sharing your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences, and being so open in this safe environment. And thank you to all the employers and students who were engaging in the chat. Students, make sure that you see the employers and contact information in the chat. Feel free to follow up with them if they drop their LinkedIn or if they drop their email. Here's a pro tip: make sure that you copy it and paste it somewhere so you can follow up afterwards if you want to hear more about these companies' diversity and inclusion opportunities. At this time, I am going to I want to remind our business communications lab students, if there are any BCom students in this event, please take a screenshot of the panelists or take a screenshot of your computer so that way you can receive credit for this particular event. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Lakeisha Hughes.
Hi, everyone. Well, I know our wonderful students had an opportunity to really talk to everyone today, but it is time for our wonderful employers to ask these wonderful panelists any questions that you might have. I know we have some questions in the chat as well that a lot of employers already definitely did place in. But if you would like to come off of mute and ask your question as well, that's fine as well. And then we'll move into our breakout rooms at 1:15. But I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to allow the employers to speak on behalf of this wonderful discussion. So who would like to speak first? Anybody?
I'll take a stab at a question to the panelist.
Go ahead.
In terms of engaging with professionals using LinkedIn, how often do you guys follow up? Is it, you send a connection and then don't follow up? Do you send a connection once a week? What's the frequency of communication you guys have with them?
I would love to take this question. So I know that was a big thing for me, was the follow-up. I always found the follow-up to be harder than the introduction. And one advice that I can give is, after your introduction, always have something to follow, always have an action item to have. The reason being that can actually help lead you into that follow-up meeting or that secondary meeting. So for example, if you're meeting with a recruiter and you all are conversing really well and everything is going well, and you just want to see if they can revise your resume for you, reason that can help is, with them revising your resume, not only will you get professional help because all they do is look at resumes, so they will be a great resource for that. So being able to ask them for their expertise, but also that gives you an excuse to actually contact them in the future and say, okay, I heard what you said, I heard the recommendations, And I actually implemented those suggestions into my resume. And I just want to follow up with you just to see if you have anything else to add or to just give me any improvements and things of that nature. And the reason why that is important is because it also shows the recruiters that you are serious in listening to them and you are serious in actually bettering your career, bettering where you are, and you are really serious about keeping your promise to and just working to better yourself. So definitely whenever you have that meeting, always have something that you can use to follow up with, whether that is a resume or whether let's find out that both of you like traveling and you said, oh, well, I'm going to a travel spot soon. Have you been to this place? Something like that. Just something where y'all can have something or an excuse to have that follow-up meeting with them. And that would be my big advice for that.
Anyone else with a question? Employers?
Hi, I'm Maria from Coke Industries. Quick question. So I heard a lot of great insights from everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm curious how from our perspective, right, you guys have the elevator speech. We also give you guys, if you have noticed, a little bit of an elevator speech when you approach our tables. So curious how we can show and answer questions from diversity and inclusion perspective, let you reflect that a company, what are you looking for the company to show that we are diverse and inclusive?
John, you want to go? Kate?
You know, I'll go. So while you hear in, I guess you could say, the company's elevator speech are the kinds of initiatives that they're trying to do. So for example, that could be anything like affinity groups, attending various parades to help support people in your community or unrepresented communities. Just, I just really like to hear about, you know, not just these kinds of things that you're doing, but also things like statistics, just something that's, I suppose, tangible that I can see you guys doing. That can be like anything on the website, for example.
I also have another point to add. So one thing that I look at is what stock pictures do you have in the background. So whenever you're at a booth, typically you see companies with like their banner or something, and they show the different employees or the different individuals that they have. So when I look at your pictures and I see only one race or very little diversity, what does that tell me? That tells me that this is how you want us. That's how you want me to see you. And this is how you want me to interact with your company. And if I see that this is the image you want to show to the community, that actually does way more than any elevator pitch. And that actually is another example of how actions speak louder than words. Although your words may say something, the pictures on the back say something completely different. And those small details are the details that I pay attention to make sure that what you're saying is actually being backed up and you're not just trying to sweet talk me.
Kate?
I was going to expand on what John said a little bit. Many, especially the larger employers, have development programs or opportunities for people to kind of grow, especially early professionals. And hearing about those and who is allowed to participate in them is of interest to me as well.
Thank you, guys. Any other employers who have questions as well?
Hi, guys.
Lawrence raised his hand. SEO, I'm sorry.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Sarah Lawrence. Great discussion. You guys all shared such fantastic perspectives. I'm particularly curious about your own experiences going through the recruiting process, you know, identifying as a woman, identifying as a person of color, or, you know, an LGBTQ, you know, lots of different equity issues with recruiting, whether that's qualifications in the application, or, you know, how you were interviewed, or what the expectations were, whether you're interviewed in, you know, 2 interviews, a group interview. You know, did you guys experience any obstacles with that recruiting, you know, process? You know, again, identifying as a person, you know, in a marginalized group.
Matthew, you want to go? Can't hear you. Let's speak up. I can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. We'll come back to you, Matthew. Sheridan.
Hi. So I can answer this one. So how I mentioned like I remember the first question that was asked where I know most of the time I was getting interviewed by Caucasian men, or I remember during group interviews, I would be the only female, especially an African-American female as well, a person of color. So that was one of the difficulties when it came to like the group interviews, or just being interviewed in general. And I'm sorry, what was the second half of that question?
And just what obstacles you experienced, and what are ways that recruiters can just help kind of maybe be kind of mindful of how to make the recruiting process better.
Got it. Thank you for reiterating that. So how employers can make that better and make kind of people feel more comfortable with that, I would say just having a better selection, because I was the only female. That was actually with Amazon actually. So not just with them, but with other bigger companies as well, just having a more diverse selection when it came to choosing, not just with males, females, but just also the race as well.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Good, yeah.
I think in my case, transparency is really important to me. I think Obi touched on this. We are all, or companies are all, giving their statements now after the pressure of society, etc. I still want you to be transparent. I still want you to be the authentic you, because it's going to be the authentic place that I work at. But in terms of your question, I do want to be comfortable during the interview. I want to be with someone who I'm going to work alongside with, someone who can be, I can essentially place myself in their foot, right, at their shoes in that sense, right? If that answers the question.
Thanks, Matt. Rachel, hi. How are you?
Hi, Rachel McKernan with Camden Property Trust. Thanks for letting me be here. And this has been an amazing conversation. You guys are wise beyond your years for sure. GSU has prepared you really well for the future. I had a quick question. So we are doing virtual info sessions for students just to kind of discuss the opportunities that we have, different management training programs. But in terms of statistics and transparency around diversity inclusion, aside from an awareness of like the percentage of different minority groups and underrepresented groups that we can provide, are there any other numbers or really hard facts that you'd want to know from a company around their DEI efforts?
You guys, and Obi, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that I also look at are the trends. So I know not every company starts off at the same place. Sometimes people start off with maybe one or a couple races or genders or things of that nature. So I understand that, but what I want to see is how are you progressing and how are you implementing those diversity and inclusion strategies? And numbers tell stories. Even though I am a CIS major, I formerly was an accounting double major until like last semester. And one thing that I love is numbers tell stories. So if I see your trends and I see that you are trying to preach diversity and inclusion, but your numbers are not saying that, that tells me everything I need to know. So as long as I see some kind of progression, some kind of trend showing that you have and you are implementing these strategies, then that's all. That would be great.
Wonderful. NCR. Where are you?
Hi, this is Sean Thompson, NCR.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, and hello, GSU. I attended GSU maybe 2 decades ago, and I have to tell you that times have really changed. I love what you all are doing, but just to get to the point, as we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, I think it's imperative, and I've heard that through all the intricate and delicate statements I've heard since joining this call, that there are trends where individuals said things like, I want to see pictures where it shows diversity, inclusion. Individual looking at companies such as who are they partner with. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that, as you can tell, I'm a person of color, and I'm a middle-aged employee at a Fortune 500, which is NCR Global Tech Company. And in the space that I work in, we're reaching out to individuals like yourself, asking, what are new trends that's really important that we can implement to make everyone be their authentic self? I've heard conversations from individuals from being authentic with my choice of hair, or people saying I feel a certain way because my dialect differs from yours. And I can just look around from the plethora of faces on this call that everyone comes from a different region of the world. But the new world should be one there everyone can be their authentic self, no matter how you pronounce something or no matter what your accent is. And in that space, I volunteer with a group called the NCR Black Professionals Forum, and we're a business resource group. And there are two other groups. There's one called United, which represent the LGBTQ community, and there's one for women called Women in NCR. Those are just three. So even though I'm aware of those three, I can imagine other groups, maybe a Hispanic resource group, maybe an Asian resource group, or whatever area that someone feels that I'm not best represented there. But you have to have those conversations with the higher ups to say, what more can we do to reflect our community? Because the Atlanta motto is the place that says, what was it? The place too busy to hate. Some of the older people on the call may remember that, but the time is paramount now to really implement that so that individuals like you and your career paths can embrace that and ensure that it blossoms. I just want to put that out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and look into moving into the breakout rooms. We appreciate everyone, all the employers. Shout out to all the Georgia State alumni who decided to jump on this wonderful panel as well. We appreciate all you guys being here today as well, representing GSU and coming back to check out the Panthers now. And as well as we appreciate all the students who jumped on the call as well, these wonderful student panelists, and all the employers who took this time out of their day to be with us to have this discussion. We are looking to move forward into the breakout rooms. Give us 1 second so we can start moving students that way. Breakout rooms should be ready. If you have any questions, please let us know. Marielle and Aaliyah, where are you?
We're here. So there is an option for the students to join the breakout rooms. One of the panelists, if you could come offline and tell me if you can see where it says join breakout room on the right side. And I think students can exit and go to the breakout rooms.
I see the breakout room.
Great. Awesome. So thank you guys again. Thank you to all of our employers who are here. We appreciate you guys again. Thank you to our sponsors. I think they should be headed out to their breakout rooms. And we will be hosting another